Welcome to Sib Spot. Today's featured Reddit stories are from PettyRevenge. Story 1 today is by Salad Unlucky 10. My neighbor's dog ruined my sleep, so I used it to ruin his. Every night from midnight to 3 a.m., his dog would bark non-stop right outside my bedroom. Deep, loud, echoing barks like he was announcing the end of the world. I asked my neighbor twice to bring the dog in. Both times he brushed it off with a smirk and said, "He's just doing his job." Cool. Then I'll do mine. I started recording the barking on my phone. The next morning at 6 a.m., right after my neighbor got home from his night shift, I played it back full volume through a speaker pointed at his wall. I repeated that for 2 mornings. No yelling, no threats, just his dog giving him a taste of what I'd been dealing with. On day 3, the dog was inside before 10 p.m. Hasn't barked at night since. Sometimes the best revenge is pressing play. That is epic PettyRevenge right there. It's not your job to keep the neighborhood awake. My guess is that this isn't a really congested area with a lot of people packed in, otherwise somebody else would be raising a complaint about his dog barking and then you setting up this giant speaker to bark when he gets home from work. This just proved a point to him, I'm sure, about how annoying it is to try to sleep when your dog is barking all the time. There was a good tiny story reply to this one down in the comments by Hybrid Aaron Carroll. Reminds me of my dad. Before digital cameras, he had lots of SLRs from being a wedding photographer. He got fed up with people who were walking their dogs and letting them poop on our lawn without cleaning it up. The house was a corner lot, so lots of foot traffic. Anytime he'd see it start to happen, he'd grab one of his cameras with no film and stand on the porch, snapping pretend photos of the activity, not saying a word. The problem stopped almost immediately. You can actually get fined in this area if you let a dog poop on a lawn, or not even just a lawn, but the dog path, and you don't clean it up. It's unpleasant, but it doesn't hurt you. But if I saw somebody taking a picture of me, if my dog was pooping on somebody's lawn, I'd actually be nervous. There's a lot of movies where people take pictures of somebody and then they end up getting like murdered or something. It happens in horror movies. Our next story is by Dodge Them. My boss kept scheduling meetings during my lunch, so I started eating lunch in every meeting. I used to take my lunch break at the same time every day, 12 to 1. I don't eat breakfast, just coffee and lots of water, so my lunch is essential and I can't just skip it. My calendar was blocked, but my boss, newly promoted power tripping, started scheduling meetings right in the middle of it. The first couple times I let it slide, figured maybe it was urgent. But when it became a pattern, I pushed back and reminded him that it was during my break, and he said, "Well, we all have to make sacrifices sometimes." Cool. Got it. Next meeting, I showed up with a full plate of spaghetti and meatballs. Had my camera on and mic unmuted, slurping and chewing. Occasionally gave thumbs up while mid-bite. A few days later, it repeated, so I brought sticky wings. Last week on Thursday, it happened again. Glad I still had my pizza. He finally asked, "Do you have to eat during the meeting?" I smiled and said, "We all have to make sacrifices sometimes." It's Friday today. We didn't have any meetings during my lunch hour this week. This person's PettyRevenge was so epic that they got like 20 rewards by the time I got a screenshot of it. And they were reacting to every one of the rewards that they got. And that's unheard of. People just loved this story. And why not? You have a scheduled lunch break. At most places of work, you can't change your lunch break. So why are they scheduling meetings in the middle of your lunch break? And why does he even have an issue if you're just going to eat during it? Honestly, I would say because he scheduled meetings on your lunch break and you had to eat during the meetings, that he should be paying you for that hour of work during your lunch as well. You could definitely make an argument for it. Our next story is by Telly Bolt. Created a problem to keep my annoying neighbor occupied and get some peace. In the early 90s, we bought a new house on a lot that was recently severed and sold from the neighbor's property. It was a large corner lot divided into 2 parcels. The back parcel was originally intended as a second driveway to connect the side road to the neighbors, but it was mistakenly sold to us. Our neighbor, a known grumpy old guy, insisted that this back parcel was his property and was never intended to be sold. He and his lawyer messed up. He would often stand there right in front of our bedroom window to kind of mark his property. Trying to have a reasonable conversation with him was impossible. I repeatedly told him that I had the deed and the property line wasn't going to change. His wife was rarely seen as she had limited mobility and spent most of her time watching TV connected to a C-band satellite dish. At the time, I was working in wireless and had access to test equipment. To find a way to keep the neighbor occupied and hopefully give us some peace, I decided to generate interference that would jam his satellite signal. I set it up on a timer so their signal would cut out 10 minutes before the hour and come back on 10 minutes after, meaning they would consistently miss the beginnings and ends of their TV programs. This definitely kept him busy trying to figure out what was wrong. He even called out technicians, but of course the issue never occurred when they were there. I could often hear his frustrated outbursts, and I imagine his wife was adding to the pressure. After a few weeks of this, I walked over to him while he was fiddling with the dish and casually mentioned that I worked in wireless and had some knowledge of satellite communications, and maybe I could have a look. He was immediately interested, so I climbed up the ladder, pretended to adjust something, gave him some technical-sounding nonsense about what I had found, and then told him it was fixed. I then stopped the interference coming from my house. A few days later, he came over to thank me profusely, saying I had fixed it when no one else could. From that day forward, he was the friendliest neighbor and never mentioned the contested piece of land again. What's the phrase that comes to mind when I think of this one? Kill him with kindness, I think it is. Honestly, I think that's the best way to get petty revenge on somebody, because you're still being petty, but they don't know it. They think you're just being nice. Down in the comments was a small story that was shared in response to this by Pomegranate Plus 6526. That is totally hilarious. Great way to get him on your side and some petty revenge. One of the maintenance guys where I used to work did something similar. It was a vocational high school with very large, high bay labs, so it was difficult to regulate the temperature at the beginning of warm and cold seasons. They had one teacher who complained constantly about the temperature. So my buddy installed a pseudo thermostat in the lab for the teacher. That way, whenever it felt cold, they could adjust the temperature up and vice versa for warm. Literally, the teacher never complained again for the 10 years plus I worked there. He said that he had found the thermostat in a box back in storage one day and thought, what the heck, why not? So he attached it to the wall, literally with no wiring or anything, but it looked real. Found some thermostat in a box in the back of the room and just stuck it on the wall, and this teacher thought he was fixing the temperature by turning it up and down. This person pretty much solved it by doing the placebo effect. They believed that the temperature was getting fixed by them turning it up and down, and so they just felt warmer or colder when they had to. That's pretty funny. Our last story today is a short one by Initial Afternoon 532. She always called me just the boyfriend, so I helped her move quietly. My girlfriend's sister never liked me. Every time we were around family, she'd say stuff like, "You're just her boyfriend, not family," or "Don't get too comfortable." I let it slide for over a year because I didn't want to start drama. A few months ago, she needed help moving apartments. Nobody else was free, and she asked me. I said sure, showed up early, loaded the truck, even brought her a coffee. She was kind of shocked. When we finished, she just looked at me and said, "I didn't think you'd actually show." I just smiled and said, "Yeah, I'm just the boyfriend of your sister, remember?" She stared at me for a second and acted very guilty. She's been way more respectful since. It's good to hear multiple kill him with kindness stories in this petty revenge subreddit today. He changed her behavior towards him just by being nice. But man, moving apartments for somebody is a lot of work. It's a lot of work. He definitely put in some kindness hours here and brought her coffee as well, for free, helped her move. Good job to OP. I'd probably have a hard time helping somebody who's been rude to me repeatedly move apartments for free. Our stories for today have come to a close. If you enjoy this content, make sure you click like or subscribe, or you can leave a comment below. Each of these things helps my channel reach more people in the YouTube algorithm. Until we meet again, have a splendid day.